This is perfect. You can keep on going, man. Ted.
What's that? Oh,
You're saying that your thesis was on gays and lesbians in the
for
workforce.
my master's, yeah, I was on the gays and lesbians in the workplace, and that was in 1990. And what was interesting after doing all the research and talking to biologists and people that work in corporations is to see that what was happening wasn't coming through any kind of political organizations. It was coming through a natural growth of people in corporations creating social groups outside of the workplace, but it was to enhance their professional performance within the corporation. And there's a lot that has happened, and nobody has really focused on that, like pulling that together. The workplace has always been especially in corporate America, has been farther in advance than a lot of the other places. So
Was that because there's money on the line?
yes, and I think they realize that talent is important.
And it's not based on gender.
It's not based on that. It's not based on that. So, but the one thing I did find out, though, and I talked to every consultant who did work in that field throughout the country, they said when you talk to somebody, um, just make sure that you do the ABCs, because some people don't want to know anything about it, and people that are extremely what they consider socially progressive or liberal think they're supposed to know everything about it. And actually, a lot of people don't know. They don't know what the questions to ask or anything else. So it's some of the basics and stuff like that I think are very important. And when you start to discuss that.
That sounds very insightful. Do you want to take a look at you want to just step on the other side so you can see where the iPad is? Facebook Live. And we're live streaming from my Facebook webpage.
Mhm.
And so that's exciting. That's going. But you just sit down in that chair and you can see this is where you're at. As you're saying right here, you're going to be talking into the mic. But you can see this video is going.
Mm-hmm.
This is on YouTube Live.
Right.
And this is Zen's Tea House, helping people through the power of tea. With Ted Knowles, one of the founders of First Day. I was also an adjunct professor at Cal State University and Antioch University. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the YouTube Live. We're going to be recording, and we got the Facebook. And so it's exciting.
Okay.
And the best part is we're going to have the audio to where you can cut and paste. That's content. So we can cover 6 different topics in the next 90 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or 60 minutes, and you could have like, okay, this is a 2-minute segment.
Great. Okay. Great. Yeah.
So
That's
and
cool.
yeah, awesome.
So
Okay, so you want let me. We got 6 minutes left, and so this YouTube is going, and the Facebook Live is going. We got 2 people already interactive, Linda and Austin Mejia. So wonderful.
so anyway, am I in the right spot then?
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean this one's right here. This one you're going to be able to be in a good place. You nervous?
No, just gonna run with the microphone.
Of course you're not. You're a gay Republican
Oh yeah.
candidate.
My formal name is Thaddeus.
Thaddeus. I like Thaddeus.
Patron saint of hopeless causes. So.
Really?
Yes. I found myself in all kinds of hot button marginalized issues. For some reason, I've been led there and be able to do my work.
Praise God, you've been able to have a positive influence. There's so many people who are lost in the identity that society says this is who you are. Mm-hmm. It's almost a caste system.
Yeah. I'm looking at that microphone now to make sure that.
Okay.
Is that going to work? Here?
Cool. And 5 minutes live. Zen's Tea Facebook.
Oh, we have the clock. Good.
Okay, cool. Let me turn this off. So, see, we already got a couple people liking it. turn this thing off? Over here. YouTube's already going.
Mm-hmm.
The YouTube is just so that people get the opportunity. So there's some YouTube channels that are live streaming 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like morning jazz, and they're playing music. Live
Watching an
streaming.
eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Maxine Pearson. He's the CEO of MJ Biotech. CEO. We were on the. We met with Kathy Ireland last week.
Hmm.
Kathy Ireland, the business. Well, she was a swimsuit model turned successful entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think she's got like a net worth of I don't know how many millions, maybe a couple billion. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But she's on Fox Business News and Zen's Tea House, and MJ Biotech were there, and it was really, really educational.
That's great.
Should be airing next 5 to 6 weeks. Okay, cool. So call in. Ted Knowles.
Notice.
Sorry, Ted Knoll. Community health leader. Community holistic health leader.
Yeah.
Ted Knoll, professor. Say that, professor. And community holistic health. So I'm gonna press that. I'm gonna start recording over there.
Mm-hmm.
We can also take a look over here. This is adrenaline radio. That's the live stream. So you'll be able to see kind of an aerial view.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Everywhere.
Thank you, Pam. Double insulated. Oh, air conditioning.
My first job was in radio, so when I was
Really?
in high school.
That sounds like a cool job.
It was. In high school, I had my own show called High School Happenings.
Is that when you found your cell? Oh, can you turn your cell phone on silent?
Hmm?
Yeah,
I did.
Okay.
But I have to go to my watch also. One second.
All right. I'm going. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, let's do the live. So we're live. All right, awesome. It's 2 p.m. and radio is going. Thank you, Pam. Hear that? Okay. Guys, speaking to the radio. I never get tired of that. So hello everyone, this is Fernando with Zen's Tea House, and I am with Ted Knoll, the founder, one of the founders of First Day, and an adjunct professor for the Antioch University and Cal State University, Cal State Fullerton.
Fullerton.
Thank you, Ted, for joining me today.
Oh, welcome. Thank you for asking.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
I'm so honored and I'm so excited. So Zen's Tea House, our business model is helping people through the power of tea, and we do this by providing holistic health education, complementary and preventative medicine, aka loose leaf teas and herbs. They're delicious. You can find more at www.zenstea.com. We have some samples. But today, we are opening the phone lines, phone number 562-945-2777, with Ted Knoll, who is a holistic community health leader, and specifically right down the street from the Zen's Tea House community, located in the city of Santa Fe Springs. And he was one of the founders of a community called First Day. Ted, can you please share with us and the viewers a little bit about First Day and why it is holistic communal health?
Wow, big question. But it's, first of all, I had worked downtown in Skid Row. I had worked with social model recovery systems down there, and then we had 12 hotels for the homeless. I was asked by my church here, First Christian Church, in 1999, is to open the, oh, okay.
There you go. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. Is to open up a homeless shelter, and they asked me to do that, and I said fine. We went through NIMBY here, which is not in my backyard, and that took from 99 to 2001 to be able to get through the people that protested it or didn't want it.
Wait. The community was protesting against providing shelter for the homeless?
Absolutely, like most small communities all over LA County. The part of the thing is that small communities have abdicated their responsibility to their local citizens, and what they did is send them downtown, and because they had the resources. And then you see the result of going downtown.
Yes. In fact, most of the products that I started off with at Zen's Tea House, before we started buying in bulk, I had to go to downtown 5th and San Pedro, aka Skid Row.
That's it.
There you go. So it's true. There's a lot of local communities in the greater Los Angeles area that do have people who are on the streets. They're homeless. But while we were talking, we were actually at a fundraiser, my wife and I, and we met Ted, and we got along so well because we both promote and are advocates of holistic health. Ted, how were you instrumental in building up First Day? I know you said you were a founder, but you bring something different to the table.
Well, there were two things. One is we were not cursed with a lot of money. So it was basically, we got no funding. Nobody would fund on this side of town anywhere in the county. It was the local people, the churches that came together, local community people, some local foundations that came together. So it was the community that came together to do this. As a matter of fact, it was the churches and community people that took over city council that stayed there and said, this is our moral obligation to our people. And because of that, even though it went from 99 to 2001, that's primary, that social capital in the community is what was able to make that open. So when I got there, I realized I had another blessing, and that was I had a clean sheet. I didn't have to do anything that was done before. I've been downtown. I did not want to see Skid Row and Whittier. And
I don't think anyone wants to see Skid Row in their own back town.
Not healthy for the people on the street, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy all the way around. So one of the things I came up with when I was a graduate of Antioch University, I'm a master's in organizational management, and I came across a piece of philosophy, which I found out later was a philosophy, but anyway, that I incorporated into my own personal philosophy, and then it developed opening up First Day, and then I'll explain how we implemented it. And it was called RICE, the Reciprocal Individual and Community Engagement. RICE is something that's health sustaining, like tea, but it's healthy, it's good for you, as opposed to what I call DICE, which I think most people do for the homeless. DICE means it's indirect. You just give somebody a check, you give them some food, you give them some clothing, and it's just direct to the person, and that's been done for years.
What's the name of this theory, philosophy?
It's called RICE.
RICE.
R-I-C-E.
Got rice?
Yeah, got rice. And it's reciprocal is the R, the I is the individual, and the C is the community. Now, in DICE, it's really the individual, especially the homeless person, versus the community, which is an adversarial relationship. And if you look at that in most communities or what's on the news, people are being moved. I mean, they're really in an adversarial position. And the question was, how do you change that from the individual versus the community to the individual and the community?
Okay.
So it was collaborative. So that was one piece of it. The last, the E, is engagement. And most people in DICE is they are disengaged. You know, they're not actually connecting to another human being. So with RICE, what we did is create, I saw this person on the street and here they were in isolation, and I went, how do we get that person back into the community, mainstream community?
So let me just get this clear so that our people, our viewers on YouTube, maybe you're listening to this on a podcast. Ted, you were walking down the street and you noticed someone who was homeless.
Right.
And you asked the question, how can we engage this person? This person is obviously isolated. It's not healthy for this individual to be on the street, but neither is it for the community. So you asked engagement. Now, right off the bat, I'm involved with some local churches, and we have beautiful people in there, little old ladies who love to be out there. But when it comes to seeing a person on the street, it's scary to be engaging. You know, it's intimidating.
Very much, yeah. The intimacy with another human being is very threatening. It operates out of the lower part of the brain, our reptilian part, which is our survival centers. And what happens is it triggers an irrational fear.
Irrational fear.
Irrational fear. It doesn't make any sense. If you thought of it cognitively and said to prove it, it wouldn't work out. But it's just there. It's visceral. It's automatic. And it's people feel fear, and they feel for their safety, and
which is to some level healthy. I mean, we have
yes.
that sense of fear. You know, you said the reptile way.
There's what's called the tripartite brain theory.
Tripartite brain theory.
Yeah, and that was from the 1950s. You have your cognitive, your intellectual part, and then you have your emotional and the limbic system in the middle of the brain. But 80% of your body and of you is run by the unconscious part. And those are the survival centers. And in those survival centers, that's where most of our social issues come from, because somehow the person's been hurt or they're in fear, and it doesn't make any sense a lot of times why we do things that we do, and but it drives us.
So this is important because people who are unhealthy, they are looking, maybe they got stage 3, stage 2, stage 4 cancer, prostate, breast cancer, whatever have you. They are now no longer being rational. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, Ted, I'm really grateful. You are a community holistic health leader. I know specifically in our hometown, the city of Whittier, Santa Fe Springs, which is where Zen's Tea House is located. Mm-hmm. We're looking at health. So we're trying to be healthy, but our cognitive brain is out the door, and we're unhealthy. We're in a fight or flight mode. What's the next step? I mean, how do people get over that?
Yeah, well, let me explain what we did inside First Aid, because it helps do that. One of the things we did is, gee, this person is out there all alone, so why don't I open it up and create an internal community for these people?
Internal community.
Meaning that at First Day, which for over 15 years, we had only one cook. We had no money, so we had one male and one female manager, housing manager. All of those have been homeless. Mm. So there's 45 people, male and female, under one roof, untreated, living together, and they ran the place themselves because they created their own community.
That just doesn't seem possible.
Exactly. So anyway,
I mean, let's be frank. I mean, you have people who are homeless, and you give them a place to stay, and we see things don't get better. They're not able to sustain for themselves. How is it that happened?
Well, and the results were less than 10% of our people went back to the streets.
10%. So you had a 90% success rate?
Well, success in the sense that they stayed through the 6 months and then moved on. Mm. Now, lifetime success we couldn't track. But I'm just saying, downtown, everybody comes in and they're out the other day, and it's thousands of people moving in and out of services. When people came in there, and this was the key thing, they had their own council, just like a homeowners association. And I said, did you want your own group? And they said yes. And so they found their own council, and then I encouraged the board to take them on as advisors to the board of directors. So we changed the power structure. So they actually sat on the board of directors and eventually had a vote, even over me. So that they were part of the entire community, board of directors, staff, and there's this whole community component. So they had their own community, and then we created holistically the agency as a community. But the big thing was that the churches came in and did a lot of service. They came in, a lot of the community people came in and helped out.
Do you think that you would have seen a 90% success rate within the 6 months? I mean, these are people who are homeless out on the street, and they're healthy enough to run the show. Would they have been able to do it without the support of the city or the church?
Well, my theory is without the support of their own community. And I go back to this because one of the things that we did that was really important is that I asked them if they, I said, you got a lot of issues. I got issues. Everybody's got issues.
We all got issues.
And I said, but you got strengths, and people are coming in here and volunteering. Why don't you become like a volunteer force of the city? And we got T-shirts, First Day Angels, volunteered to all of our opposition that opposed us.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so smart.
Well, it's not also smart. There was a disciples preacher who came up with a poem, and with that I translated it, and it was they made a circle to keep me out, so I made a larger circle to take them in. So it's actually part of that principle is being of service even to your enemy is very important. They're going out, they supported the police, the business community, the hospital, and all that. And we have documentation from a 2-year study from the Center for Nonprofit Management that reduced the fear in the city by 85%.
Wow.
Yes.
So wait, in what timeline? I mean, within, you said
4 years.
4 years?
4 years.
So okay, again, this is Zen's Tea House. Our mission statement, our mission is helping people through the power of tea. I'm here with Ted Knoll, professor and community holistic health leader, who is discussing about how within a 4-year period, there was a lot of homelessness going on in the local community. This is specifically in the city of Whittier. You can Google this. He's also on the consortium for the homeless. This is a town in the city of Los Angeles County. That within 4 years, you were able to establish this group, and it was a group effort with the churches, and see a 90% success rate of people who, when they came in, stood the whole duration for 6 months, and then drop the community fear by 85%?
Well, they didn't necessarily stay the 6 months because if they found something prior to that, they could move out. So what I'm saying is downtown that it's a revolving door. People come in, take a cut, they go back out, they're back in again, they're out, and they're back in again. We did not see that movement. As a matter of fact, several years later, someone said, well, a lot of our people were on the street. And I said, well, it's 10 years later. I said, well, count them. How many people that have been in First Day are out in the street? And they said, about 30. I said, good. We've had about 1,000 people through here.
There you go.
And
that's
there
a
you
70% success rate as far as
yeah. So it's
that's way better than prison, by the way. Way better.
Way better, and realize that we did not have a lot of funding for this. What happened is that when they created their own community, they had pride in their community. Very much what I grew up in, a small immigrant community. My mother's from Wales. They're coal miners. My father's people from Poland. The mine whistle blew, and everyone got up and go to the fire and fight the fire. It was a community. I like Whittier because Whittier has that ethic that came through the Quakers, a sense of being a real, vibrant, authentic community. And what I mentioned about them going out and volunteering, that is the reciprocal part. Nobody thinks about saying to the homeless, well, here, poor thing, you have this, or we're going to give you that. That becomes infantilizing. And they become very dependent, and you're part of that process.
You're enabling them.
And you're enabling. So the thing is, if simply asked to do is like, would you like to help? Not mandated, because that's not volunteering, but say, would you like to help? They were like really enthusiastic. And what happened is the culture changed in the community of Whittier. There was a culture change to the point that I think Whittier is the only place in the country where the business community annually asks First Day to have a float in the annual Christmas parade where the signature line is Whittier has room in.
That's
And
beautiful.
then the community can appreciate the people that are trying to change their lives.
Now we have a question via Facebook. We have a question. This it might be off topic. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious what the veteran population was within your homeless population. So you said you had 1,000 people come through. What percentage, more or less? I mean, were veterans?
Yeah, it was. I think it was about 8% or something like that.
8%. That
Well,
seems relatively small.
it is small here in Whittier. Part of it is that there are programs that are available in Whittier that
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't necessarily know about, called share housing, where there are homes that people that are veterans stay. There has been tremendous increase in funding from the VA and everything else with a lot of vouchers and stuff like that. So there was a concentrated national focus on veterans, and I think that has helped that particular population. Oh, incidentally, you're talking about homeless. I'm not talking about the person that's on the street with a shopping cart. I'm talking about the elderly. We just had a woman, 80 years old, walk into First Christian Church, can't afford a rent. Lived here all the time in Whittier. You're talking about single unattached adults, family members.
Wow.
You're talking about 34% in the county that that are homeless have experienced domestic violence.
Wait, 30%?
34
34% of people in the county of Los Angeles
that are homeless
that are homeless.
had experienced life experience with domestic violence.
Life experience. So they grew up either in the system, or that seems kind of ambiguous.
Well, that's when they did the stats from LASA.
Hmm.
That question was, have you had any life experience with domestic violence? But it leads us to one thing we don't think about, and especially in treatment, is there's a lot of underlying issues besides drug, alcohol, mental health issues. You also have youth. There are a lot of youth, the transitional age youth that transition out of foster care. So it's a broad spectrum of people, and we tend to see the tip of the iceberg, which is the shopping cart and the stereotype, and think, oh, that's homelessness. And no, it's much broader than that.
Yes.
Mhm.
So wow, I'm really grateful that we're having this conversation because, again, the business model helping people through the power of tea. We go into lower income communities. We're in Southgate. We are in some other. I probably shouldn't name the cities, but you know, we do some wellness festivals and some, lower socioeconomic systems and areas in the greater Los Angeles area. And we really try to help better the community. In fact, there's a Salvation Army right down the street from the
Yes.
Zen's Tea House.
Yeah.
And I see that homeless person pushing the shopping cart. And I love the idea of helping people, but as you just said, Ted, and you have your master's in organizational leadership, and you one of the founders of an organization that has just done phenomenal numbers, really, really well, providing not only housing but community for the homeless and improving the community for the residents of the city of Whittier by what, 85%? You said? Is it 85%?
Uh, that was the figure for reducing fear, the irrational fear. This is
irrational.
getting out of our beast and into a more rational state.
Okay, so you have this organization, you're doing this, but how do we help? And we are trying to help people, but we can't really do a good job unless we're looking at is what we're doing helping? Are we isolating them, or are we providing a community for them to be able to thrive in? And that sounds like the overwhelming thing is that to provide community.
Yes, there was a study done from a book called Bowling Alone. And
Bowling Alone.
Bowling Alone. Can you imagine going to a bowling alley by yourself?
I used to.
Yeah, you used to. Okay. But basically, going bowling was a social thing that people would go out together. And this man tracked from 1900 to 2000 all the different organizations, all the different civic organizations and everything else. And since 1960, it's all been declining. And the fact is that we've been disengaged because of technology, because of the iPhone, because of transportation, things like that. We commute. We're not as engaged in the community anymore the way we used to be in the past. And then we have what we think is communities online, communities, and they are to an extent. But there's nothing better than face-to-face with another human being.
I completely agree,
right.
Ted, yes.
So I just want to finish up that one point, is that one of the times we had the students down from Whittier College come in, and someone asked the residents, what's it like to be homeless? And they said, we're not homeless. We have a home. This is first day. We just need a house.
Mm.
Because they developed a community and they felt part of that community and they felt supported within that community and they ended up respecting the house. When I left, I resigned in 2015, I had a Whittier PD officer there and I asked him, okay, this is with his kids. And that to me is success.
That's such a powerful message. So you're promoting communal health, or
Yes.
rather the power of community.
Power of community.
When you see people who are on the streets, the homeless person who's pushing the shopping cart, and mind you, not everyone pushing a shopping cart is homeless, and you don't have to be homeless to be pushing a shopping cart, can you really experience overall health by being homeless? You can, I guess, if you are in a community or you see an improvement of health, because now you're healthy enough to get into that 70% range of getting back on your feet.
Well, I think if you're in a safe, community, and the street is not a safe community necessarily. Matter of fact, living on the streets takes about 25 years off your life expectancy.
25 years.
Yes. And people go into the ER because they're sick, and they come out in the street, they reinfect, and they bounce back and forth, and there's no system here to really ensure that person, stays healthy. I think, no, the street is a very unhealthy place for people to be. The big problem there is mental health. And what do you do with people that are mental health? Whittier has a med team now, which is really great. It's a police officer and a mental health person, and they go on the street and they build relationships with people on the street, and they can get them directly into help in doing that. And they've been able to get people to come off the street into housing.
How important is mental health if you do not have a community? Do people who are mentally unhealthy, are they even capable of sustaining themselves in a community?
I believe they can. The reason I'm saying that is, well, I'll go back. I have 30 years of recovery, 32 years from AA. And a lot of the principles
Congratulations.
Thank you. A lot of my learning came from that because, I'll mention again, if you go to a 12-step meeting, there are no leaders, there are no money. It's just people with the same issue helping each other.
And that jerk who just keeps on getting drunk and starting fights, right? I'm just joking.
But it's what's interesting, since 1935, it's never had any kind of formal structure. It doesn't fit any particular kind of organizational matrix. And yet it's been very successful.
It's been self-sustaining for over 80 years.
That's correct. And it's not only that, what was very interesting is the first recovery home out of that came from an architect who said these people need to be in a home environment. So the environmental piece has been there from the beginning. And that what you do is, it is such a strong community that if you drop into a meeting anywhere in the country and you don't know anyone, you walk in the room, you feel at home. You feel that you're part of family.
So we were talking about how churches were instrumental in initiating, supporting this group that our society as a whole wasn't open arms about.
Correct.
It sounds like this environment, this communal health, is also very similar to a lot of churches or religious organizations.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Catholic ordination and being like, sit down, talk, sit down, praise. But I've heard people saying, I really like that because no matter where I go in the world, I will experience this same environment.
Right, and there's a commonality there. Matter of fact, when people come out of First Day, we encourage them to get into what I call is the frog theory. Is you've jumped into the pond and you're on a lily pad now. You got 6 months here, and you're going to have to jump in 6 months, or do you have another lily pad out there? And a lot of people went to, say, Rio Hondo College, got involved, started going back to school, getting
Beautiful,
a GED,
that's awesome.
Stuff like that. A lot of people, 30% made reconciliation with family because their family's here in Whittier.
30% reconciliation. That's better than most people.
And and you know how we did it?
How?
My chef there, anyhow, he says, hey, Ted, he says, do you think we can have a barbecue on Sunday for some of these people's families because they're really PO'd at them after all they've done, and maybe they can get together. I said, that's brilliant. It's like communion. You bring people together, sitting down, breaking bread together, and then we had someone else who was homeless said, well, I'm going to send their families a little postcard and said they're here.
That's beautiful.
Really simple stuff that's really community organized. Is very powerful, very effective. It doesn't come with large grants, and things that you're tied to contracts, and that all of a sudden you have to perform to the contract and you forget about the client. So it's that I'm just very focused on seeing the effects of having, both from a 12-step perspective, the power of community from my church when I grew up. Because I go back now, I'm still, I go back to my home church in Pennsylvania, and it's like, coming home.
Wow.
But these are social structures that the mainline churches are losing, by and large, and these are structures that seem to be dissolving and going on, internet, or being disassociated more.
No, there's a few pastors who do YouTube videos and they
Yeah.
live stream and they say this is not a replacement for
It
church.
isn't.
And it's because the intrinsic value that you experience through face-to-face interaction, that community.
But what you just did to me right then was you touched my arm.
Yes, I did.
That touch, is huge. If you go into a meeting, in a 12-step meeting, you're going to get a hug. And there's something about in the base of the brain that says, I'm safe. This person cares for me. They don't have to be in language. It doesn't have to be intellectual. It's just there. And you hear people breathe. And I've seen people come in those meetings who are really have mental health issues or medications. They go out of the meeting and they have this release for a period of time. And that's why they do 3 meetings a week, is because it's like you have to continually be, and you know that from church, into a spiritual setting. And these are really spiritual settings. And in there, there's a renewal that happens with that person to help them go on and have faith and trust again, which they've lost, especially if you're homeless. You're really mad at God, and you don't have
everything.
trust. You don't want to live.
No, I've seen. So we've had quite a few people who worked in the Zen's Tea House company that have been in and out of the streets. People are homeless.
Mm-hmm.
It's an industrial area that we work with in Washington Boulevard in the city of Santa Fe Springs, borderline Whittier. It's literally, what would you say, like maybe a mile from First Day, if that. And people who are looking for a job and basic entry, they are now able to experience this community because now they have people that they're working with. They feel like they're giving back.
Yes.
And that's so important.
So important. I've had, the first year we did that volunteering, we ended up volunteering to the Salvation Army, which had homeless. And one of the gentlemen there, when he went over and he served food to the people and he came back and he cried. This is a big bad dude. And he cried and he said, "Oh my God, Ted, I was on the other side 2 weeks ago. And I can give something. I have something to give." And that is so important for having purpose or having anything, and it begins to open up, I think, and we encourage people to explore faith communities as one of those, but a community of some kind, a support group, a healthy family.
So when I'm, as a business owner, one of the things is the Zen's Tea House company now is publicly traded on the stock market. There's, I think, maybe 6,000 companies in America that are publicly being traded. That's quite an accomplishment. I thank God for that.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people who now approach me saying, "Fernando, wow, you started this company, you're 23, you're 29 years old, you got this super successful company, it's national, we're shipping internationally." And they asked me, "Okay, so how did you do it?" And, I pretty much show them, like, Jesus, God. I give them that, they don't like that answer, but then I show them, like, these are the basic fundamentals. And so you give them, I give them these resources, I give them the homework, and now I tell them, now take this into your community, and they have no community.
That's right. This is what we're missing in our whole society right now, is a sense of we've lost this fabric of community.
I know.
Well, I'm saying is I've taken as the most difficult population probably,
I think that's fair to say. Homeless people are a pretty difficult conversation.
And it can be. People are afraid of them, and they have a lot of complicating issues and stuff like that. And yet, that element of community. What I did at Cal State Fullerton was I was curious about that. So their assignment was, I said, look, you're going to do your papers, you're going to take your tests, you're going to do all that. I said, we can have a major project this year. And the major project is this. You all commute. You come in here once a week. You don't know each other. I said, I want you by the end of the semester to become an authentic community. 2, you're all getting the same grade. 3, I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
There you go. Facebook social tags.
Put them into ambiguity. And I said, it's in your DNA. Figure out how do you become this. And every semester, they really hated it in the beginning. And I tell them, look, go to your therapist, drop the course, that's fine. I said, but if you're going to be in it, and at the end of it, it was amazing. Everyone was sitting talking, and they were mixed between their normal silo groups and everything else. So it was that experiment of mine of just doing this kind of experiment to seeing if people would automatically create community. So you can't create the community, but you can do the setting for the community to happen.
Mm.
And I think you can't control it. And that's a hard part, is to be supportive of that crucible and be able to influence it and then let it organically grow. Now, one of the things that I'm curious about, and I don't have the medical background, but I look back at my little hometown community and I realized that my mother went to Negro Baptist Church and Mrs. Jenkins went to Negro Baptist Church, but they went to different hairdressers. And then my father, well, he was a Rotarian, but somebody else was a Lions and something else like that. And all of a sudden, I realized that these networks started to build and overlap. And I went, I think that's the way our brain organizes. That we have all these different modules that are happening, and they're all interconnected and networked. And I thought, well, that's what community is.
Well, that's
and so
that's a neurological question. I could try to get one of our naturopathic neurologists on the show. There's actually one of them. He's practices Ayurveda in downtown LA. I think it might have been Westwood, but I could see if we could come in and talk about that.
So for me, it's like if you want to create an authentic community, you don't do it. You create a space where it can happen and you can nurture it. So, it does have to have boundaries. There's some elements that are universal to it, I found out. But that, over 4 semesters there, proved to me that was, they had the pressure of getting a grade. And so there were some elements to it. But they did it in very different ways as they ended up growing and being able to connect into as authentic a community you can do in 1 semester. But it was very genuine, and they genuinely supported each other.
Well, that's good. I mean, they were all getting the same grade. I would think so, but yes. So we have 25 minutes left. If you have any phone calls or any questions, I know we took one question. You can call 562-945-2777. And I am with one of the founders of First Day, Ted Knoll, an adjunct professor over at Antioch University in Cal State Fullerton. It was very interesting. I very much believe in community. Serving in the military, we have our own communities. We think like, military, all in the one community. But no, there's always subgroups.
Yes.
And the identity that you develop in communities is so important. One of the things, so there's a gentleman who I'm not going to name drop. But anyways, there's a gentleman who's working for the company. He's been there for 2 years now because he's now in a community with people who care about health.
Yes.
And there are some people who like to smoke and drink and live that crazy lifestyle. Well, this gentleman here, he's in his 20s. He lost 100 pounds in 2 years working at the company because he was now in a community that was promoting environmental communal health. And that's holistic. You cannot be physically healthy without being in an emotionally, environmentally sound, safe environment, which is why you just said that people who are on the streets, they have what, a 25, they're on average will lose 25 years.
25 years off their lifespan.
Wow. So the average person lives to be what, maybe 80, so they're looking at 65.
Something like that. Wow. Yeah. Well, sure, because you get diabetes, you get an infection, there's a lot of different circumstances, but your lifespan has been shortened because of living on the street. It's not healthy.
But you could also be in an Alley Fitness or a 24-hour fitness. You can be going to these really nice workout groups, and you could be golfing, and you could be so alone you may not be interacting with people.
Correct.
You can be taking the vitamins, drinking the golden milk, taking aerobics, but if you're not interacting, you got your earphones in, and you're not interacting, not having that face-to-face, then it will have a negative effect on your health.
It does. And what was interesting to me is we had all the advocates from the churches that were very supportive of First Day. In doing that, what I did is one minister who helped us through that. And I said to him, do you think you can ask someone from your congregation to come down and just offer a ride to church? Not as a homeless person, but just as a friend that you're bringing to church. Oh no, Ted, our people aren't ready to do that yet.
What?
Yeah, there you go.
No, I get the same thing. I totally 100%.
No, the intimacy of getting in a car is irrationally frightening.
It is.
It is.
Well, we got the news. It's training us. We got the news is negative. What to guess? It depends. I mean, you could be looking.
It leads. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No. Well, I'm probably a little more advantageous, a little more fearless. I mean, you can't be a business owner and take on all these risks without. But there's a lot of people who are part of my local congregation who will pass the check, say, God bless you, I'm praying for you, but please let's keep a 15 foot radius away from me. And if it's night, just stay away from my block.
And that's called engagement. And actually, a matter of fact, if you were to come to First Day, and we had a lot of students that came there, one requirement is you sit down and eat with people that are homeless and have a conversation.
Oh, so when I was down, this is a true story. People who are watching Facebook Live. So my wife, so I used to shop down in Skid Row.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good little stuff. It's all industrial. Yeah. And I was really hungry, and I got a really good parking spot where you don't have to pay money. So I went down to LA Mission, and I was like, I'm just going to get some of this free food. Oh, which, by the way, it was very, very filling. But yeah, I'm totally...
But what was important is Paula Sheridan, Dr. Paula Sheridan, head of the social work department for Whittier College. We got together, and she actually changed her curriculum to include this philosophy. And it was reciprocal in the sense that they had students pair up with our residents. They would be in the shelter sometimes they'd be on campus. And really made it reciprocal in both ways.
I don't know how parents would feel about that curriculum.
Well, they came down and did a project over the semester, and if you were there at the end of the semester, you weren't able to, from the conversations going on, who was homeless and who was a student. They were just a community. And Paula just loved to say, Ted, I don't have to do anything. This thing, you set this table, and then people are hungry for it. And over time, they authentically can talk about their fears with each other. And what I loved was the residents would come in and they'd say something about the students, they say, look, we've been homeless. We have an experience. We got something to teach you.
Oh, that's true.
Yes, because they are educators. And so that's the reciprocity again, is a sense of not just in one direction, but it's bidirectional. Now, one key thing is I found out that most individuals want to be very special human beings. They just want to be recognized as an individual. And then you have the group.
Don't you know I'm important, Ted? Jeez.
Special. I got my radio show.
Don't you know that? You hear that in a lot of first 12-step meetings. Don't you know what happened to me?
Yeah.
But that's a part of being in community, is to be able to stand out to some extent.
Well, here's the thing I found out is that and when I was getting my master's, that the individual and the group are basically in a natural conflict all the time. That the individual wants to be an individual and be special, but they also want to be part of the group. And then, so what happens is that it can set up this adversarial relationship. And I use one story that's, I think, fairly simple, but it's the daughter who grew up on a farm and wanted to go to college, and they said, no, you got to stay here, take care of the family. You can't get educated,
There's a lot of communities like that.
Right, and the fact is, it's not. If it were mutual, it would say, oh, we're going to help you get that, then you can go back and help the family. If it was reciprocal in that sense. So what I say is, when the individual gets out of its ego and the group gets out of their ego, and they're in support for each other, then something greater happens. In other words, if
helping people through the power of tea. I'm just joking.
But if you go to work and the company doesn't care about you, they just want you, you get your paycheck and you don't care about them and everything else. And but if the company cares about the individuals and grow those individuals, and then the individuals in return want to care about the bottom line for the company, then you've got something really strong. But it takes that mutual reciprocal support, and that's where it moves from the adversarial to the and,
yes.
the collaborative.
That's correct.
And that the move from adversarial to collaborative is very difficult, but I'm very interested in that as a cultural change. Just don't forget, communities are nothing but individuals.
Yes. So again, this is Fernando with Zen's Tea House, and I am with Ted Knoll, founder, one of the founders of First Day, a social welfare program that helps people who are struggling with homeless get back on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
We're specifically looking at communal health. Now, when Ted and I were talking at the First Day, it was actually the First Day fundraiser,
Mm-hmm.
you and I discussed a plethora of things, and this
Yes.
is all of it involves health, because you cannot be in a community that's unhealthy and not notice the unhealth. You can't be in a healthy community and not recognize your own lack of health.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that you talked about, and it's called the third space.
Oh, yeah.
I
Third
would love.
space.
I'm gonna have. Anyone ever heard that? The third space? I haven't.
Okay. Well, it's an architectural term,
Architectural.
architecture. And one of the things that's interesting is there is a architectural theory that there is work, there's home, and then there is this third place.
Third place.
Okay. So
No, I would rather be first place, but okay.
okay, yeah. You have home, work, and this third place. Well, what's really interesting is that it's what's capitalized on that is Starbucks, because Starbucks has coffee,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't the coffee. It was the place where people could meet in between and have that sense of community in there in a third place. And that third place, what's really interesting, it's in their training and it's in their whole corporate imaging of promoting this community space in between the product, and the individual. So you're coming home from work, you stop, you have coffee, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to have a quick meeting, you're going to touch base, and then you can go. Churches did that too. I mean, in a sense, people during the week went their own way, home, work, and then they come to church, and then they have that.
Bars do the same thing.
Bars did exactly the same thing, and they're tremendous. Even in Europe, the pubs and everything else. It's a people don't, not just the drinking, because don't forget the spirits is spiritual. That's a lot of people. That's where the word comes from. But it was a place where people could relax their cognitive by having a few drinks, and then be social with each other. As so now it behooves us to do it in a healthier way, but to keep that component of where is the pub today for everybody. And like I said, it's Starbucks, but there can be in many other components, like between work and home. This other place where people could intermix. In other countries, it was the plaza. People went to the plaza.
Mm.
And so this historic with other cultures is this third place is very, very important. And what it is creating a space for community to happen.
Yeah. I imagine that's why the saying comes, it takes a community to raise a child. Is, man, that's... Okay, so third space...
In my hometown? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Mrs. Jones could reprimand me, and Mrs. Jenkins, that was my other mother, and no matter where I went, I could not do wrong, because everyone was related to my parent, and it was that community raising me. So those boundaries were held by all the parents on that block.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about this third space. How do you orchestrate this? This is obviously outside the home, outside of
Right.
work.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a community-based place. I mean, some people, they like to go to sporting events. They like to do, what are those things called? Tailgating.
Right.
Is that a third space? Is it presented by a person or a leader, or who's responsible for
Well, I
creating
think
this
you
third
have some
space?
natural things which people will do to do that, but it may not be as, I think Monday Night Football, when they have their parties together.
The Olympics?
Olympics, the Academy Awards night, things like that. But I think to intentionally create a third space, I think churches offer that, especially during the week too. It's a place to go, that you get out of the house and you get out of your business mind and you're in a different space.
We've been mentioning a lot of churches. I want to say that for just all spiritual
Mm-hmm.
institutions, synagogues, temples, places of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a doctor, one of my buddies. He does Tai Chi
Mm-hmm.
in Long Beach. I think it was on a hill, or it's this opportunity to be able to have a community. It doesn't have to be explicitly a church,
Right.
but usually you will experience a higher elevation of what spiritual health by being
Spiritual
in
health.
the
Yeah.
And last week I did a spiritual. We talked about spiritual health with
Mm-hmm.
my friend Shaman Isabel. That was, it was really interesting. I call it spiritual or something, Pam. I was trying to get the Facebook Live going and the YouTube. We got the YouTube Live going on right now, but it was just, it's like no joke, Ted. When we're community,
Mm-hmm.
you can bring in someone who is just of a different, we'll just say frequency, and like I can walk into a temple, and if they're all spiritually aligned and in
Yes.
tune, you can pick up on that. Even communal health.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with some people? How does society move forward when you have people who are not equally yoked, or they are just, there are some religions that are explicitly against other religions. I
Yes.
mean, you know, to the death to the infidel. I mean, that is
Yes.
something that exists.
Yes.
I was in Burma, and a lot of people say, "Oh, Buddhists are so." No, they're doing like a explicit strategic genocide. There are religions, and you could take a look at all of them to see that there are people who, because they identify themselves with a certain denomination or title, that they're like, no, we're enemies. How does a third space exist when you have people from different religions? Communal health.
I think it's a big thing. I think with the consortium of homelessness, we helped do that. I know that there was not a division between mainline religions and the evangelicals, even in Whittier. There was a split before, and both those are on the consortium. So we found a space. I think you have to have an issue that's agreed upon, where you have a table where people can come around, and some common theme in which they can come around about. And I think that's
Battling
because
homelessness.
yeah, it can be homelessness exactly, because the churches have been so instrumental, whether it be evangelical or mainline or anything else. It wasn't a particular thing. Going back to 12 steps, that is a spiritual space where people go into, and that is so healing for people.
Let's get spiritual, guys.
And we're required in my program. I'm a compulsive eater, so I go to. I was 70 pounds overweight. I've lost 70 pounds for over 17 years. But I need a 12-step program. It's 3 meetings a week. I need to be in a spiritual space just like I go to the gym. Otherwise, you atrophy just like a gym. You have to exercise your spiritual self. And I have my own religious faith community, but I have other spiritual places that I do as part of it. So I have more of a holistic type of spiritual life now.
Well, that sounds very zen, if you ask me, Ted.
It is? Okay.
It's very zen, yeah. It's like people say, "Oh, you're so zen." Like, what Buddhism do you fall under? Well, there's a ton. Mahayana, Theravada, Zen. But that's beautiful. We have about 9 minutes left, and it's been a real pleasure. I just want to cover the bases of what we talked about today. We're on Facebook Live, but we're also on YouTube. We're going to make this available for more people. We're talking about communal health, and I'm with one of the founders of First Day, Ted Knoll. He's also a professor at Antioch University and previously at Cal State Fullerton. And we're talking about a plethora of things. All of them has to do with community. Community health. When you look at community, now you're looking at identity. You are looking at your spiritual condition. You're looking at relationships. If you're in a community of any kind, it does play a role in relationships, family, friends, work, and also it's almost a self-help.
Yes, there's a peer-to-peer between people that are walking the same path, helping each other. You're not going to get a more diverse community than homeless population with all the various issues and everything else. And yet you create the space that's safe. Take Maslow's hierarchy, safe, food, clothing, things like that. And then allow them and give them permission to create their own community and make their own mistakes and through trial and error or whatever. And all of a sudden, there's a respect for that. There's something else develops out of that. Same thing in the 12-step program. So many times you go in and go, God, you're a person I've never met in my life. I'd never meet in my life.
You got problems. Stay away from me.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, wow, we're all like together. This is like, it's all this things of religion, race, and all that. And 12-step meetings, they just kind of disappear for those moments, which is really fascinating. How the other things can disappear, and in that moment, you could be spiritually together. And it doesn't last forever. It is, like I said, you have to exercise that. It isn't something that happens and then, oh, I got it, and then you got the fix.
So our mission statement again is helping people through the power of tea. Thank you, Ted Knoll. We're talking about communal health, and you cannot be you can be drinking the tea, you can be consuming all your vitamins and minerals, but if you're not in community, you are missing out big time. And this is not just for people who are homeless. We use homeless because it's a very diverse population, very difficult one. So you're saying, oh, well, I'm special. And Ted was just talking about how when you're looking at societies, societies are made up of individuals. And so when we interact with people at the farmers markets, private wellness festivals, even customers who said, I get emails every day asking, can you help me with X, Y, and Z? And one of the things that I ask is, how's their nutrition? What's their daily consumption? Are they in a healthy environment? And they might be doing everything right, but one of the things they lack is a support group.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, don't you understand that when I come home, there's like Hershey's and high fructose corn syrup in every corner, and it's just too much. They need that that third space.
They need a place so they can intimately engage with other human beings. And that intimacy, and that's part of that, the model is the engagement, which I called it's intimacy with another human being. And one of the things that for me, as part of my philosophy, is that I came upon the fact that if I can sit home and think about my issues and problems, or if I can pray to God and have a conversation with God, is not enough. I think of myself as a conduit. That means I have to connect to God, to myself, but then I have to connect to the world. And when that circuit is complete, then I can be a conduit. If I take any of those elements out of it, it does not work.
Now, there are going to be some people who hear this and say, well, that might be true for you, Ted.
I'm just saying for me.
But it's not true for me.
It's okay.
But when you've seen the amount of people that went through First Day, you said over 1,000 people.
That was in 10 years. I was there for 15, so yeah.
So
it's about 130 people a year, I think, that went through there.
Got your master's in organizational leadership or management. And so you see this, you have a lot more experience than I do. And I can attest to this. I can affirm saying yes when it comes to building up organizations and working with different cities and communities, that if you don't have community, you're at a huge disadvantage.
It's a disadvantage. I think that if you're an organization, any business too, is that if you don't have a sense of community inside your business, you're not going to be as productive.
So here's something. I know we only got a few minutes left, Pam, but we were having a little conversation before this conversation about how the corporate structure, corporate companies have been able to really be progressive when it comes to gay and liberal rights, or gay.
Right. Well, that's one of my journeys.
This is your thesis you did on, right?
That was my master's thesis, and my name is Thaddeus, my formal name, which is patron saint of hopeless causes. So,
amen.
So anyhow, dealing with that personally and coming through that identity crisis was huge. To be able to deal with that, through the pain of that, and also the pain of being an alcoholic, and then dealing with that. And out of that was the learnings that came and the gifts that come with that. I also talk about being a grateful recovering alcoholic, because I can see things now and be of service more than I ever would be before. But what happened, there was an organic thing that happened when I was studying, this is back in 1990, is that a lot of corporations on their own, well, it was actually employees, they would have a social group, like a gay social group, off campus and not part of the organization. And then they developed where they would have it inside the corporation, and it was for their own professional development within the corporation to do that. And a lot of this was happening without any political organizations or anything else. It was just an organic thing that began in business. Did the research, and it was the only issue which 80% of the public agreed that people should have a job. Everything else at that time, like gay marriage and all that was like at 40%.
Wow.
So it's it was the one place where there was, and believe me, not a lot, but more of the major corporations because they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, you
And they
got a
want
lot
to
of
keep that
people.
talent.
Yeah,
Right.
doesn't matter. I don't care who you are, what your religion is, what
Yeah.
the color of your skin. You do your job. You do it really well, and keep coming back.
Yeah.
And so you provide that infrastructure
Yeah.
of community. Well, Thaddeus, Ted Knoll, thank you very much.
You're
Pam,
welcome. Thank
we got what you want to end it right now? This is from. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. See, look at this. Love Zen Tea House changing my life. Thank you so much. If you you can please join our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You're always probably seeing us on Facebook. And you can get all these podcasts on Adrenaline Radio. So www.adrenalineradio.com. You find Zen's Tea House there. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Ciao.
Ciao. I like that, Don. Beautiful.
Is that okay?
It is wonderful. You did great.
Yeah, okay.
I got the Facebook.
Never know if it's too tangential or not, but that's.
You did wonderful, man.
But I refer anyone who wants to follow up on any of that. Good. There is really something inside of us that knows that we're okay. It's like the hug I never got from my father. You know, it's like.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I was never. You could never touch me for a long time until I came to program. The isolation.
So, let me see.